Shalom, everyone. On Friday, we quoted the Bach, who says that our goal is to have 100 blessings a day. So we try not to overlap and not to cancel blessings if we can make them. But today we're going to discuss what happens if we forgot to say the Birkot HaShachar, which ones are already fulfilled by the different prayers that we say during the morning prayers. So this is how it works. Whoever forgot to recite the Birkot HaShachar before the prayer service may recite them afterwards, with these exceptions. It says the exception, but there's going to be three exceptions, with the exception of the blessing Al Kadayim, which may not be recited after praying because it was instituted as a preparation for prayer. Similarly, he may not recite Birkot Torah, the blessings before Torah learning or Torah study, since he already fulfilled this obligation by saying Ahavat Olam or Ahava Rabbah according to the Ashkenazi custom. So this is the second blessing before Kriyat Shema. And because in it we talk about how we thank Hashem for giving us the Torah and for choosing us from all the nations to give us the Torah, then even though we don't say the actual words of Birkot Torah, the rabbis understood that we are fulfilling our obligation by saying this blessing. And third, also he may not recite Elokai Neshama, thanking Hashem for restoring my soul to me, since there are those who say that he already fulfilled his obligation to recite Elokai Neshama when he recited Birkat Mechayei Metim in the Amidah. And by the way, Birkat Mechayei Metim is not only said in the Amidah 3 times a day, but also when we visit a cemetery after not having been there for 30 days. So the idea of restoring our soul is not only every morning, but rather when we face death, when we face visiting the dead, we have to have that gratitude to Hashem to basically say, thank you, Hashem, for having a soul. And I'll end this idea with what it says in Psalm 116 or 15, where it says that Lo Ametim Hallelujah, that the dead cannot praise Hashem, and therefore, when we do have a soul, when we are breathing, when we are alive, we are the ones who are responsible to have that connection and to have that blessing of thanking Hashem for having our soul restored. And so we'll conclude this paragraph with, therefore, one who must skip Birkot HaShachar in order to pray in a minyan on time should at least recite Al Netilat Yadayim, Elokai Neshama, and Birkot Torah first, because if he does not recite them first, he will not be able to make them up after the prayer service. And that's according to the Mishnah Berurah. And the basic suggestion or compromise is that on your way to shul, most people don't have a shul in their own house. On your way to shul, just say these blessings, and that way you will not forget. If you have time for more, then of course you should also say the other Birkot HaShachar. And so the question is, until when may he recite them? Since there are those who equate the time to recite the brachot to the time of the Amidah, the Chatchila should try to recite them before the first 4 hours of the day. Fast, this is not 6 to 10, but rather what's called halachic hours. So we divide the day to 12 parts. If the sun rises at 6, for example, and sets at 9 p.m., then every halachic hour is an hour and 4 minutes, I think. That's how it calculates. So 64 minutes instead of 60. So that's the Chatchila, so the 4 hours, and also that's the end of time for eating chametz on Erev Pesach. So that's where we know that time from. However, if he did not succeed in saying them before Chatzot, before midday, b'diavad, he may recite them the whole day, And may I remind you that yesterday we talked about Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. So there are those who say the blessing Shasad Kortzorki after they put on their shoes, and that's definitely after Chatzot because that's the time for Mincha. So that is what's called the Di'eved, the not preferred time, but the one that is still okay. And the reason for this is that according to the majority of poskim, time to say the brachot differs from the time to recite shacharit, because Birkot Shachar are blessings of thanks for the good things from which people derive pleasure throughout the day, and so it doesn't really matter b'di'eved what time we say it. And so we'll just go to the next paragraph, which talks specifically about the time to say the brachot Birkot Shachar. And this is in a case that somebody wakes up in the middle of the night. We're not talking about a case where somebody goes back to sleep, because that there's no source what the right time is. When somebody wakes up twice during the night, I researched this again for the time of prayers and blessings for somebody who wakes up for guard duty and then goes back to sleep. For example, if he does guard duty from 12 to 4, then he's awake for those 4 hours, but then he goes back to sleep until 6 or 7 in the morning. So we're just going to talk about somebody who wakes up during the night and stays awake until the morning. So the Chatchila, all blessings should be recited as close as possible to the time one wakes from his sleep, and it is not necessary to say them specifically after Alot Shachar, meaning that you can say them before. So right now Alot Shachar is around 5 a.m. If somebody wakes up at 4 to 5 and they're going to stay up for the day, they should recite the morning blessings. Therefore, one who gets up before Alot Shachar in order to learn Torah, to work, or for any other purpose, must recite Birkot Shachar immediately upon waking up. However, Birkot Shachar may not be recited before Chatzot, halachic midnight, and therefore a person who wakes up before Chatzot must wait until after Chatzot to recite Birkot Shachar. If he recites them before that time, he does not fulfill his obligation. So again, we don't know for sure what the halacha is for somebody who's going to go back to sleep. But if somebody wakes up before the halacha midnight, which can be as early as a quarter to 11 and as late as 1:30 a.m. So that's why we have that idea of chatzot, because that is the night time, and therefore they're not considered Birkot Shachar. And last but not least, one wakes up after Chatzot for a few hours and plans on returning to sleep until the time to recite Shacharit, such as a soldier who gets up after Chatzot for guard duty and goes back to sleep, must say Birkot Shachar after his main waking. If, in his opinion, his initial waking is his main one, meaning that he thought that after the 4 o'clock duty he's still going to stay up awake, and then even if he takes a nap after that, similar to a nap in the middle of the day, he must recite them after the first sleep. And his second rising is his main one. He must recite them after the second rising. So that's the answer of Rav Melamed, but again, it's not in any of the sources that we researched, and he himself answered that in yeshiva.org. However, the Kabbalistic custom is that as long as his first rising is after Chatzot, he may say Birkot Shachar after the first rising. If he did not say them after the first rising, then he must say them after the second, and that's understandable. It is the opinion of most poskim that the law regarding the Torah is similar to the ruling of blessings recited upon the performance of mitzvot. Therefore, one must recite them every time he wakes up from a regular sleep at night or day. Still, there are those who have the custom to recite them only after the first rising, and see the laws of Birkot Torah further in this book. So those are the different ideas, those are the different customs, and the main conclusion from this is that we only say Birkot Shachar once, we only say Birkot Torah once, and that's why we should try to make sure that it's only after the main rising, whatever time it is, as long as it's not before halachic midnight.